Hello and welcome to this edition of The Verified with me, Mustafa Kedao. Today I have Lord Mayor, Mr. Talib Ahmed Bensouda. I actually wrote yesterday Ahmed Talib Bensouda, so I'm later told that's wrong.
Many people confuse them.
Yeah. Welcome to this special
Thank you so
edition.
much, and congrats on the platform.
Great. So, you recently, of course, now there is an addition to being a Lord Mayor,
Yes.
which is also that you've created sort of joined another like-minded people to create a movement which we at least we now think that it's going to metamorphose into either a political party or at least it will in any case contest the presidential election. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So
great. So how did this transition came about? I mean, maybe you can talk us through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've initiated a movement called the Unite Movement for Change.
Yeah.
And the intention is to metamorphose into a political party, which we've started. We started the application process. So of course the catalyst was the events that led up to the departure from the United Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But for the longest of time, I have always viewed Gambian politics as very personalized, and where it's in terms of issues that are discussed, they are not about national problems. It's a lot of personality politics, self-perpetuation, and even when you look at the level of discourse, it's usually attacks on each other, character assassinations, but nobody's competing on ideas. And one of the things I was trying to do with the former party I was in, which is UDP, is to sort of evolve the party from its traditional ideals of human rights champions and anti-dictatorship to basically evolve into a modern day political party where across the board we have positions on various issues. And of course, to be more inclusive and to have a party that thrives on ideas and not just personalities. But of course, UDP is very traditional in the way they do things, and it's a party that's gone through a lot of struggle. So they've basically solidified in terms of how they imagine politics should be run. And that posed some difficulties, I was called many names, right?
Even when you were within?
Yeah, well, even when I was with them, right? We can't trust Baro 2.0. So it came to a point where I had a self-reflection and made a personal decision. Either I will be in an opportuned to lead or to lead the party, or I must branch out and set up something that I could be comfortable with and I would believe in 100%. And the latter happened, and that initiated the Unite Movement for Change. And I say initiate, not create, because I believe any political platform that is credible must be formed by people, masses, and cannot be formed by an individual, which is one of the things that is wrong with Gambian politics.
But do you think that, let's stay with the UDP a little bit more. Do you think that even when you were within, there was a struggle to belong? Do you feel you?
Yeah, so of course, I would say that there have been instances, but I wouldn't say that there was a struggle because, to be fair, I have had opportunities in UDP that others did not have. I became the mayor of the most consequential municipality, the most important city, arguably, and I was supported by the party. I also became the chief of campaign. These are all major positions. But of course, in terms of ideas, I wouldn't say I struggled to belong in terms of my personality or because of my background, but I would say because of maybe the vision or direction.
Or do you think the political path? Because, for example, you were talking about UDP coming from dictatorship, and they are still sort of, in your view, in a fighting mode, sort of confrontational mode.
Exactly.
Into a more sort of persuasive politics. Do you think that's the difference?
Yeah, so I think UDP, being that it was formed in turbulent times, because you're talking 1996, We had a coup d'etat in 1994. There was an authoritarian government. There was a dictator. People lost their lives. People, were tortured, enforced disappearances, no freedom of speech. Dissidents were in exile. So it was formed basically in turbulent times, and the culture they developed over time, which is natural, is to fight against this dictatorship. But I think after 2016, there was a challenge now to evolve, right? From fighting mode, if you can use those words, to a modern day political party where we talk about ideals, we talk about principles, concepts of what the vision for the country. And not just the UDP, I think all political parties in Gambia basically struggle with that. But I think I was in the UDP, I would have loved for a party like that to be formed in a situation of fighting for freedom, which they achieved, and then to evolve into a more progressive sort of party where we promote ideals and concepts, etc. But I think that struggle exists within the party even before I even joined the executive. I mean, there
And you
was,
don't think it could have been fixed?
well, there was always a struggle between the traditionalists and the progressives inside the UDP. At least when I was there, I don't know how it is now, but that struggle has been there from time, and you would hear comments like the educated people are the problem, So there's a belief which to a certain degree may be correct, where the, if I may use the word, people who are not educated or illiterates believe that educated people did not join them in the struggles. But usually, when there's times where opportunities are, they're the first to show up. So I think that fight I met in the party already.
Doesn't that show a greater Gambian disillusionment, if you like, with our general body politics? Because you do have Gambian saying, so for example, my native Mandinka, they would say, to our Karandingo, which sort of insinuates that the educated people are always looking for an opportunity to sort of...
So this is by design, and this is by design by the former regime. Because if you look at before 1994, the educated people were in government. People who with capacity were in government. But post 1994, there was a deliberate attempt to scare the educated, scare the intellects, keep people of capacity away from government, because there was an argument by the former president that the so-called elites of the day were the ones who basically robbed the country. So he basically tried to create a social ladder for especially his kin to be in charge of government or to have opportunities he felt they were deprived of. And basically what happened in the last 22 years, in my opinion, is that educated people stayed away from politics. People who felt that they had opportunities outside of politics stayed away from it.
Now, do you not think that that's also largely because, one, Gambian people tend to be disillusioned by our politics? So, for example, for the longest time, people think that even educated, even whether they are educated or not, the political elites don't serve the interests of the people, one. And two, also that there is a disconnect between government and government service and the people. Maybe that's created over time a certain perception.
Yeah, so I think one of the problems is President Jawara, of course, overstayed. I think there was many times for government to remake itself, government to change. And Gambia being a small country, incumbents are very powerful and very influential and could, extend their time in power using money and government. And I think if Jawara stepped down a bit earlier, it would have allowed for government to remake and government to evolve.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't agree that the educated people of that day didn't serve the people.
Yeah.
I just felt like there was no basically change in the way politics was done or government was done. But I think at the time the political class was quite educated. The city of Dibas, etc. You had UP, NCP, a lot of political parties. PDOIS was formed during that era.
Yeah, 1990s.
So what has happened though is post 1994, because of the authoritarian regime, there was a deliberate effort to keep educated people or so-called elites or people of intellect or capacity away from government. And this theory started to develop that government is a ladder, a social ladder for the uneducated or the poor to have an opportunity to be educated and be rich.
Yeah.
So basically the so-called progressive people sort of stayed away from government. A lot of them went to the diaspora. Most of them joined the private sector. So I think that battle still exists in Gambian politics. So where you have somebody who is considered an elite or somebody who's considered an intellect step into politics, the instant reaction is to fight them and keep them out of the platform. So I think that is something we have to overcome as a country. I think, though, you are right that Gambia needs social engineering in the sense that there's a lot of vulnerable people, especially women and youths, and especially in rural Gambia and the urban poor. And there must be an active effort to create a social safety net and to also invest in those segments of society to allow them to also grow and be capable. Because if we are to have a progressive country, if we are to have a developed country, then most people should be capable. Most people should have good incomes. But the reason we are poor is because the 90% are poor.
So do you think that so for example, do you believe that the UDP was capable of sort of some transformation? I mean, even back in 2018 or say 2021 or thereabout. Do you think it has the right ingredients?
I think so, because there's a lot of intellects in the party. But like I said, there's been this constant power struggle between the traditionalists, conservatives, and the progressives. But the traditionalists and conservatives outnumber the progressives, and they are more powerful in a sense because they have that long history in the party, or they have usually they're the elders, and they've been with the leadership for a very long time. So they tend to have more influence, right? So the ability of the party to innovate is hampered by that.
Do you think that may have led to them losing the presidential election 2021? Or do you think there is a merit in the argument they have not lost?
Well, I think...
Oh, you have not lost because you were there.
Yeah, I was there. So, I mean, there was a lot of arguments about registration, which are valid to a certain degree. But also, I believe they lost the election. I believe we lost the election.
You believe you lost?
Yes, I believe if you really do polling at the time with Gambians, you would see that Barrow was leading the polls.
Even before the polls that came out before the presidential election.
Yeah, it showed that Barrow was leading, and usually non-Gambians don't participate.
Well, you were the organizing secretary at the time. Did that not concern you? Did you not sort of raise those key issues with the party to say, well, I think that we need to do something, and even if we look at the polls and look at where we need to do more?
So I raised it. So one issue I saw was in terms of, you look at demographics, younger people, especially those in urban Gambia, were not very keen about the candidacy of the party leader. Then there was also a tribal issue, where if you looked at majority of minority tribes, if you consider the Mandinka as the dominant tribe and the Fulani, both the Fulani and the minority tribes, UDP was polling very poorly in those areas, and that's the 70%.
Do you think that has there been any data collection to know why this was the case? No.
So I think in Gambia, so I was asked in a last interview whether I think tribal politics is a huge problem in Gambia. I said no. I think tribal politics or factionalism exists in every country. However, I think the major problem in Gambian politics is personalization of political parties and a focus on the personality and less on the concepts and ideas. So when you dissect a person's personality, tribe exists and is very present in the mind of Gambians. So people tend to gravitate towards who they believe is closest to their tribe. So if you come to the case of Barrow, he was basically raised in a Saraholia community. His mother is Fula, his father is Mandinka. He spent time in Banjul and Sarakunda. So it's about people feeling that, okay, this is somebody we can relate to more. But when it came to Dabo, though he was, went to school in St. Augustine's in Banjul, and also he lives in Pipeline, and he has the diversity in his household. People did not see that. They just saw. They could not relate. They didn't see that. They focused more on his tribe or age or things like that. And like I said, the only way we can deviate from that type of politics is if we focused on issues and evolved away from personalities. So I think tribe always will play a card in Gambia. It plays a card in even developed countries if you are just spending time on personalities. But it's concepts and ideas that transcend factionalism. So the more we focus on that, the more we can unify our people and the more we can progress as a country. And these are some of the things we're trying to change. With the
do you think that's possible? Because, in politics, they do say that people do not vote with the mind, they vote with the heart.
So I think
that they vote with the emotion. So
I think in both, I think in politics that is progressive, people use both. Yeah, so in politics that's very conservative or traditionalist, people just vote with their heart. So they don't think about what the candidate's plans are or what's the vision for the country. They focus and spend all their time on the personality. So I think, for example, in more developed countries, let's use an example. Let's say the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom or the Republican Party in the United States. It's two things. The first is people look at the party stance on critical issues that affect society. So, for example, you look at the issue of birthright. Republicans are against contraception. They are pro-birth, right? Democrats are for contraception. They are pro-choice. You look at the issue of, let's say, immigration. Republicans are anti-immigration. Right? Democrats are pro-immigration.
Well, you could see how Trump now came to weaponize emotions.
Yes, but like I said,
his political camp.
Trump is a phenomenon. But in normal situations, the issues come first, and then the candidate who represents those issues comes second. Before the phenomena of Trump, this was the norm in the US. Before we had even Boris Johnson in the UK, this was the norm in the UK. So before you had Mahatma Gandhi, Narendra Modi in India, this was the case in India.
So these are populists, and populists can
exactly. So these are populists. But in Gambia, we don't have populist candidates yet. So, but Gambia, what we have is personalities, right? And this is why once personalities leave these political platforms, they collapse.
So let's look at, for example, the case of your departure. Not just you, but there is a lot of people within. Well, I don't know if we can call it a lot, but there is a sizable number of people who have left with you. And the argument was that they could no longer have faith in Ousainu's leadership. Do you think that it was in pursuit of that goal? Was there a need necessarily to create a new party, or was just based on the idea that Ousainou was not electable, and if he's not going to go, then we will go?
Yeah, so I think many people left because of the same reasons I left. I mean, it's because they were hoping for evolution. They were hoping for progress, for change. I mean, Ousainu's, he's a good guy. His Excellency Ousainou Darboe. He's a good elder. He's an elderly statesperson. But I think generally it's less about the personality and more about the party's ability to evolve, right? So even when you listen to commentary, the justifications for why there should be another chance, these issues are more traditionalist and more conservative in nature or more on personality politics. So I think many people left because they did not feel that change was happening. The excitement wasn't there. Some left for their own personal reasons, but I left, mainly because I did not see the future. So basically, like I said, what we are trying to create now is how do we create a politics for progressives? How do we create a politics of inclusion? How do we basically move away from selling personalities and more on concepts and ideas? So what we're very focused on now with the Unite movement is creating our stances on key positions, right? So on regional politics, on Senegambia relationships, on immigration, for example, on employment, economic policy, things like this. So policy positions on every issue.
But do you not think that you should have probably do a sort of an assessment before you split, right, to sort of find out what was the issue of the time? So that what was it that UDP has not solved that we could come to solve to sort of draw people away from UDP and MPP? Have you done that before?
No,
because
so
your split seems to be very prompt. I mean,
you
file for
to
leadership
to people who maybe have not keenly followed. It may be prompt, but if you were following the trend for the past 3 years, you would know this is where we were going.
Yeah, I mean, the tension was there. But
the tension was there, and it was just building and building and building. So, like I said, there was no way out. It had to happen. But like I said, that's the past. So now what we are trying to do is learn from the environment, learn from political parties. We've seen the way they run since 1965. I don't think any party is perfect. And I think most parties since 1994 are organized in the same way, are run in the same way, are sold in the same way. So the versus is not issues, it's personalities. Who do you prefer, this personality or that personality? But it's not what do you prefer, these issues or those issues, if you pay attention. So it's a popularity contest between two personalities. So every political party right now, anyone you pick, ask them what they are for and what they are against, they can't tell you.
So do you not think, maybe just this final question on the before we move on, do you not think also, I mean, it's about the strategy that you guys probably have employed? So for example, there was a tension clearly, I mean, like you said, tension between one time you were with Sabali, one time Sabali took you for an anniversary. Another time you had Yakuba was very critical of you. Another time Rahim Malik Low was very critical of you. I mean, was it not the case that you people who left have not made a convincing case to those who you wanted to side with you to say, look, I think that, okay, this is not about me, but I think that Ushenu needs to go. He has lost elections. The data is against him. The past and present data is against his electability, and that we need a fresh start. So that can be you, it can be me. If you had sold it to them like that, do you not think they would buy?
So I think the issue of the tensions you name are not particularly about Hussein Dabo's leadership. The issue of Hussein Dabo leading actually did not really come up till this year, because for most people, they had already been convinced that he was not going to run. And
that's the same for you also.
That's the same for me. So that was not an issue. That surfaced this year. I think what has been a recurring theme is about whether people wanted the party in the hands of somebody like me. And when I say that is, when I say that it's that traditionalist argument versus progressives. Okay. So many people felt that maybe if the party was in the hands of somebody like me, it would change.
It would change.
Yes,
because what changed into what?
So it would be less traditionalist and more progressive, right?
But when you say less traditional, more progressive, there has to be a meaning to this. Is it right, just so now, that they think that you are from an affluent background, maybe, or you are more sort of elitist?
That might have fed into certain sentiments. I don't think entirely. But I think that might have fed into certain sentiments.
Or they don't see you as Mandinka, maybe?
Well, I think in certain corners that may be true, but I don't think that's the majority of the party. That's why I was asked, do you think UDP is a tribalist party? I said no. if they were tribalists, I wouldn't be mayor of the biggest municipality. So I think I am evidence that they are not tribalists because I went against 7 other Mandinkas. Now, I think when I say traditionalists versus progressives, it's many themes, right? So, like you said, maybe my background in terms of I'm seen as somebody from more of an affluent background that might have fed into some people's resistance. The other is my personality as well. I am avant-garde in terms of ideas. I like to innovate. I like to bring transformation and rapid transformation. And naturally, all people around the world are naturally resistant to change at first, but especially Gambia being a small country, it's a small town mindset. But also, I think there's, like I said, that battle that has existed since 1994 as the educated class versus people who see themselves as the ones who did all the sacrifice.
But Hussein himself is a beneficiary.
Yes.
Do you not think that
Right.
you're giving too much to those people and sort of not to Hussein? Because Hussein clearly wants to be where he is.
Well, he could speak on that as a personality. I don't know.
Yeah, but he wants to contest. If he does not want to contest,
I don't know
he would
what
not have
goes on in his mind, and he's best to ask. But I certainly believe if one wants to be president as long as he does, they probably want to be a president before they leave the stage. Because I just had a conversation this morning with my wife, and we were watching a Cristiano Ronaldo documentary, and he was talking about winning the World Cup as immortality, because the World Cup is the biggest award in football.
Yeah.
So you could win it all, you could be the biggest celebrity, but you never get immortality without the World Cup. And when I say immortality, I mean to be remembered, like the Peles and the Maradonas.
Yes.
Because there have been many footballers, same as politicians. There's been many big politicians in opposition in the Gambia, the Serif Dibas, the OJ Jalos, the etc. But only presidents get named after stadiums and airports and conference centers.
Yeah, there are two sides to that. You may not be a president, but you may make a president.
Yes, but like I said, you asked me what maybe he wants to be a president. I'm saying, as a politician who has been it as long as he has, I would imagine immortality for him would mean being a president.